Hey everybody, it's Tommy Canelli and welcome back to Before the Lights podcast, the show that tells you how they made their mark. She specializes in fashion publicity and small fashion business consulting. She's a marketing guru, a social media management and creative director, an entrepreneur owner of AMPR Showroom, AMPR Creatives, and Free as a Tea, a fashion expert that is highly intelligent, a small town girl with a big city attitude. Please welcome to the show, once again, the beautiful Ashley Michaelsen. Ashley, how are you?
Wow, that intro. That intro was pretty incredible.
It's been a couple years since you've been on the show. And listeners, if you want to hear more of the background on Ashley's story, go to the show notes. I'm going to put a link to the very first time that we had Ashley on the show back in 2020. But since then, a lot of things have happened in your life. You've had some changes, and there's some things that you want to talk about. So are you ready to go forward?
Yes, give it to me. I'm ready. I'm ready for the hard questions, the easy questions, everything.
Listeners, we're going to do a story inside a story. And it's going to begin with Ashley's personal struggle and dependence on Adderall. Going way back, Ashley, when did you start to realize that you were alienating yourself more than you realized?
I think even growing up in my childhood, I very much was always someone who could really lean on myself, right? I was really independent. My crush was more of my parents and my family and adults, but I always had difficulties kind of connecting with my peers. And I think that at a young age, I was experiencing a lot more. My parents got me into modeling, and so I would always travel to New York City, and I really got to connect with the big city lifestyle, you know, new people, culture, new foods. I was really learning a lot at a young age, and I was really taking on a lot of responsibility. So it made it very difficult when I would go back home for the school year to how to transition back into that. You know, and it's not like I had, you know, kids at that age, we don't even really know how to have conversations about careers or even travel. You know, this started when I was literally 6 weeks old, but, you know, I'm talking about, you know, being, you know, 8, 9, 10, around that age range. And, you know, it's not like I can really come home and kind of explain to them what I've been doing. So I really just kept it to myself. I think I also knew that the type of small town mentality, and I love my small town. I always will. I'm so grateful that I, you know, was born and raised there. But I think that there's not room for those type of discussions, and it's just too foreign to people, you know. So talking about modeling and, you know, acting and, you know, being on stage and TV and all of that are just really foreign conversations. And so I just knew that they wouldn't be welcomed. And that kind of shut me down in school. But I think what would happen is, you know, all of those things that I would accomplish over the summers with my mom modeling in New York City were, you know, pretty big accomplishments for a young age. And so, you know, as a child, I was getting rewarded. I was getting acknowledged. I was getting love from adults, from my parents, from my siblings, from teachers. But from kids, it wasn't the same reaction. So it really created this confusion for me. You know, when we're still developing our minds and our bodies, I was so accepted in one part of my life, and I was so unaccepted in the other part. And I couldn't grasp why that was. I could, but I didn't understand it completely.
Can you give me an example of how you were treated differently from adults versus kids at school?
Yeah. And it sounds so tedious now, you know, it's not even.
But at that age, it wasn't.
Right. At that age, that's all you know, right? You were consumed. That is your lifeline. That is everything to you. And, you know, just on a side tangent, I would love talking about guest speaking. I would love to be able to explain to kids at that age or in high school in general that there's so much more besides that cap, because I mean, it still boggles my mind because I consider myself a very like emotionally intelligent person. But even at that age, or even when I was 16, 17, 18, is when I started to realize there was a little bit more in life. But you're so limited in your thoughts of like, you don't think anything goes past school. You know, it's really your lifeline. but to go back to your question, I think, I had a target on my back. That's what it was. I looked different than the rest of my kids. My kids than the kids. I honestly, I will say I was more mature. I had matured, quicker than a lot of them. I was handling different responsibilities. And, I partly alienated myself, to be honest, because I really wasn't connecting with them either. It just really wasn't my people. They were, yes, at the end of the day, I'm sure they're good people and they're great people, but they just weren't my cup of tea. And I think that was very obvious, and they reciprocated that as well. So, the typical stuff, the bullying, the making fun of, the rumors, the drama, all the typical stuff that we hear in school happened. It happened to me on a very large level. I had the eggs being thrown at my houses. I had the girls, hitting me and getting into fights and all that fun stuff. Right. Like I said, it sounds so petty when you think about it now, but it really did shape how I am as an adult, because I still kind of have that trust issue with peers. I've never really seemed to see what a healthy friendship should really look like, because it's always been laced with some toxicness or drama or rumors or some negative context.
When did you first notice that you were experiencing a problem focusing?
So I'm not book smart, and I'm actually proud to say I'm not book smart. Because that made me really rely on my street smarts and my common sense and my emotional intelligence. That's the only thing I had, right? That's the only thing I could really, that's a skill that I could grow. Book smart, I was not. I would read a book and I would fall asleep within one page. Nothing held my attention. And the truth was, I needed more stimulation. And going back to New York City and everything, that stimulated me. That gave me energy. That was like, wow, I kind of belong here. I don't really belong in the small town environment, because just even at that young age, I really wanted more. But again, it was hard to understand at that time of like why I was kind of just so blah and, bored. But I think, I would work really hard at grades. I would get tutors. I would do anything for extra credit. I would stay late in class. And, the teachers really saw that like I was determined and dedicated, and I would work really, really hard and still just end up with like a 67 average, or I would be barely passing my tests. And I think that's at some point they had said, she has a focus problem. And I don't know if I did or I didn't. I just think naturally I wasn't interested. And that's when they had, I think, mentioned Ritalin, but we didn't, I think my mom got the prescription. We never ended up taking it because we just kind of knew that really wasn't the problem. There was just more of just a lack of interest. It really just wasn't really interested. But I don't know what kid really is interested in math, science, history, but some are. I guess the people who go on and pursue that, but to me, I was like, none of this is really going to apply to, this is when I realized there's more than just school, right? I realized there's a future and there's a whole world out there. And I'm like, math, science, English, none of that is really going to apply because I already knew what I wanted to do at that point, So, I remember the teachers would make me, when there was exams, they would make me get up out of the class and take my exam in a different room. And I actually enjoyed that because I got extra time. I was in my own room. Sometimes there was other books that I could take information from, which I probably shouldn't have done. But they really kind of set me up for success in those rooms. And the anxiety of, a timed test I never had to deal with. But of course, that gave another target, on my back. And kids were like, oh, so she says she's a model, but she's kind of dumb also because she has to be the, the one person who gets that. It's actually pretty mortifying when a teacher gives your exam to everybody, right? And everyone takes their pencils out and they're ready to go. And they're like, so everybody who needs extra time, now stand up and leave. And it was just me and like one other person who, he became my buddy, right? We're like, let's do it. We're Dumb and Dumber. Let's go out and take our tests and go into our private room, So we made fun of it and of ourselves as well. But
before we start getting more into where this leads to, I want to leap forward a little bit.
Okay.
Ashley Michaelsen, Inc., AMPR Creatives, a boutique PR and marketing and talent representation agency, connecting brands and artists to consumers and media platforms. You talked about this before on the first show we did about putting all your passions under one umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to my listeners about this AMPR Creatives and why you're doing this.
And I can't remember exactly what I said last time and kind of how, this business found me, but I came from, I went to FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology, got my degree in fashion merchandising management, and I started designing when I was about 18. I realized that I really enjoyed the finished product of something at that time. I enjoyed marketing it. I enjoyed the fashion shows. I enjoyed styling the garments, photographing the garments, creating social media strategies. At that time, social media was actually kind of a new thing. Bloggers was a new thing. All these things were kind of new to the industry. And it was kind of like I would really rush through the designing part just so I could get to the finished product and then do the part I liked, So I remember I would tell a lot of my modeling clients at the time. Now I'm around 18, and my income was modeling, and then I would fund my designs with my modeling money. And so when I would be at my bookings, I would just, have small talk with my clients, and I would just say to them, I'm starting this line, and there's this new thing called bloggers and like influencers, and they're kind of like famous people, but they're not. And then I would tell them I'm doing a fashion show or whatever the case was. And I think that was an interesting conversation for them because they only saw me in one light, and that was, being a model. So now they kind of saw this young girl that has like, her finger on the pulse of certain things. She's doing more than just modeling. And they just started asking me questions of like, okay, so how do you do this? Or how do you reach out to a blogger? Or like, how do you style something? Or what if we needed a photo shoot? How would you go about that? And I started kind of collecting all these side jobs. And, I would be doing social media management for somebody. I would be doing like blogger partnerships with someone else. I would be creating photo shoots in the direction and putting the whole team together, that I would like hire the photographer and the stylist and the hair and the makeup and all that. And I was like, wow, anytime someone asked me what I did, I hated that question because I'm like, I really don't know, because it's just so many facets of like side jobs. And it was like, they were serious responsibilities and like good and good with good lucrative brands. But it made me feel like just like a odd man, just I had all these odd jobs. Sorry, not odd man. Like I had all these odd jobs. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I decided to incorporate and make all these side gigs my services that I would list. So just recently, I actually split the company into two. Because it kind of, like I said, fell into my lap, I really didn't put a huge structure into it. I just, like I said, I incorporated and I listed the services that I was good at that time. But more and more started happening where I realized, there was a PR side of my company, and that is the fashion showroom. So that is the part where I represent the physical product of brands. They bring like their samples into my showroom. And then I work with stylists and celebrities and magazine editors, and I invite them into the showroom. And it's kind of like they can shop for whatever item they want, but I loan it to them for free, right? And the hope is I loan it to them, they loan it to their celebrity clientele, she wears it, and then we get a picture of so-and-so wearing the item. So that's one side of the business.
So that's the AMPR showroom.
That's the AMPR showroom side. Yeah. And then the other side is AMPR Creatives, which I just kind of restructured that. And so, that is now the marketing side. So that's doing all the social media strategies. That's doing all the creative direction, the photo shoots, all of that stuff. Basically anything that isn't PR related lives on the AMPR creative side. And we also just created a new division where I'm representing artists now. So I'm helping them and placing them with, agents or getting them kind of getting their teams together for them, whether it's like a hairstylist or a makeup artist or whatever the case is. So kind of working with up and comers, if you will, on that facet. So that's a new division. But I'm glad that I split it, because now even just my mindset alone, I'm able to I didn't really realize I was running two businesses at once. So it's just feels refreshing to have it kind of divided.
Listeners, go to the show notes. I'm going to put links to AMPR Creatives and AMPR Showroom. What you basically have done, Ashley, then is simplified your business to help you simplify your life.
Absolutely. Yeah. I probably did it more for myself and my mindset than anything else. And my team too, right? They're like, well, are we emailing from AMPR Showroom today? Or are we emailing from like, who are we today? You know, like what side of the fence are we on? So it kind of streamlined the process for everyone.
Back to the personal struggle.
Yeah.
What year were you introduced to Adderall that started a 5-year addiction?
Ooh, those words are still very fresh and raw to hear. You know, I struggle with even saying the word that I was addicted to Adderall, but it is very, very true. I will say, you know, being an entrepreneur is really, having any job is stressful. It really doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or what you're doing. Life is stressful. Everybody has deadlines. Everybody has responsibilities. Everyone feels spread thin. And I know that at this time, I especially felt very, very thin. I think, you know, going back to my childhood a little bit and that modeling side of me, you know, I was constantly jumping from job to job, meeting new people all the time and working with new teams. And it forced me to kind of put on this first impression face, but every day of my life. And, you know, I wrote this recently in a blog. It's, you know, if you have a job where you're going into the same office every day and you have the same coworkers, there's some comfortability there. There's some consistency there. You still want to put your best foot forward, but like you can crack a joke with the person next to you. There's maybe some banter, like there's some sort of rapport, right? And you can have a bad day because people really know who you are. They know what your good days are, you know, and they know what your bad days are. For me, you know, when you're going to a new job every day, you are forced to give a good first impression every single day. And if you take that and drag that timeline out for years, my life was just full of making good first impressions for years. And it took me a minute to really reflect on that and understand that. But that alone becomes very, very exhausting because you never can let down your guard. You never can really like connect with somebody. I mean, my life was full of small talk, and the people who really, really know me know that I absolutely despise small talk. And it's actually a trigger to me because most of my life I was forced to do the small talk of like, where are you from? How'd you book the job? Who's your agent? My agent's have you worked with them before? And I was cringing inside because deep down, like I just knew I had more depth, but that's not what was wanted on set, you know, and you're not going to see them again. You're really not. And so now fast forward to my marketing agency, it had a similar pattern, right? But now my modeling clients are my marketing clients, but I'm still kind of forced to give that good first impression all the time. Now, yes, they get to know me a little bit more, but that became scary to me because I'm used to the good first impression and now I can back away, right? There's no chance to get to know me any further. So for me to have to come back a second day or a third day and like continue that same first impression really gave me a lot of anxiety. It was as if I only knew how to make first good impressions and I didn't know how to continue on with someone past that. Although I had this like urge for depth and like intelligent conversations and like wanting to talk about like more serious things, but it was almost like my mind just didn't know how to get there. And I became very insecure. So still to this day, I would tell people I can make a really good first impression, but the second time you meet me, I'm kind of not like the first time you met me. I'm actually just more calm and more myself, but I've looked at that as a negative thing because people have got to know me as the, hey, how are you? Oh my God, you look great, fantastic, right? Because that's what I was taught as a child, right? And some people, you have that enthusiasm first time, you know, you meet somebody, but then you get to know them and you're kind of like, okay, we said all the nice stuff, so let's just kind of cut to the chase and what's going on today. And that's who I really am. I'm more like, let's just get to the point, and you know, I have a sense of humor and I have a banter and all of that stuff. But it was as if I just would be like frozen and didn't really know how to do that with anybody. And so someone had introduced Adderall to me, a couple of people at the same time. And Adderall to me, I know it gives people different effects, but to me, it gave me more of a personality. It made me hold the conversation longer. It encouraged me to talk more, because the truth is I always coined myself as shy. I really don't think I am now, but I always had that narrative in my head. I always tell myself I'm shy. I don't know why. And to me, Adderall kind of took that part away and made me want to talk and made me have kind of some more patience for people in a way. And it really became a tool that not only kind of stimulated my personality a little bit more, but I mean, I could get so much more work done, obviously, as well. And I was juggling a lot, when I first kind of started everything, and, juggling multiple clients, having the showroom side, having the marketing side, personal responsibilities, family responsibilities. And it was just too much for me to handle. Some people might be able to handle that, but I wasn't able to at that time. And it gave me the stamina and like the extra mile that I needed every day.
For the record, I like the real Ashley versus the other Ashley.
So do I. And it's funny, when I even thought about this podcast, I go, you know what? When they first introduced me, I'm just going to say like, hi. I'm not going to be like, hey, Tommy, and go all into it, because this is me now being like, I just want to be myself. I don't, but it's not me trying to be fake. It's what I was taught. It's how I was conditioned. Actually, I wasn't taught it. My brain was conditioned to think that that's how you responded. I think I almost was kind of stuck in like a child mentality also, right? Because my childhood was full of these first impressions, being overly enthusiastic. And I'm sure that was natural as a child. And it kind of stuck with me as an adult, but it didn't feel true to me. It was just like, well, that's my normal rapport. That's what I do. Over the top enthusiasm the first time I meet somebody. And then it's like downhill from there is the narrative I would tell myself.
Well, listeners, you got to understand, as she said, when you're starting something at such a young age and you're constantly, for lack of better terms, in the spotlight to get a job or constantly pushing to do something, that personality that you're talking about becomes the personality that people need to hear so you can get a job. Where other people don't understand that industry, you're forced almost to act a certain way so they will hire you, when really that's not who you are. Well, now you're like, I'm shedding all the layers. And a lot of people now are going to find out who Ashley really is. And thankfully that people are in for a real treat, because the real you is so cool. I want to get back to something here. And you said this is maybe hard to hear, but I want you to talk about how this progression from Adderall goes into Xanax and alcohol and forms this toxic cycle.
Yeah. So Adderall is an upper, it, like I said, it affects people differently. So for me, it stimulated me, and it was an upper for me. I still get confused because I know as children, it's supposed to like kind of calm them down and focus them. It focused me, but it gave me more energy. So I was more hyper.
It was opposite for you.
It was opposite for me. Yeah. And again, having the mindset that like, I kind of feel like I need to keep up with this first impression. It was a perfect solution. But, like anything, it starts out in small doses and then your tolerance grows. And I became very, very, very dependent on it. I learned all the tricks on how to manipulate it and how to use it in good ways and bad ways. And well, I guess all bad ways, but, for example, I would wake up at 5 a.m. I would pop one and I'd go back to sleep for like 20 minutes. And then I wouldn't have to feel the drogginess of waking up. I'd be ready to go. And I love that, because to me, I'm like, okay, I'm up early, no sleeping in, and I can get so much more done. But then I would crash around noon. So I just take another one. And as my tolerance became higher and higher, I'd have to take more and more. So the cycle really became half the day building myself up to the level that I wanted to be stimulated energy-wise from the Adderall. Then I would look at the clock and around 4 or 5, I'm like, shit, I got to start winding myself down now. Right? So then insert Xanax or actually before that, I realized there's a lot of side effects of anxiety too, just natural anxiety, because your heart is racing the whole time, right? When you're on it, depending on how it affects you. For me, my heart was always racing to the point that I wouldn't want to work out because I was so nervous that I would overly kind of like stimulate my heart. Because I could feel it pumping, really feel it through my chest, and then it just really scared me to even work out on top of that. But so there's a lot of anxiety that comes along with it too. And I was never a true smoker at all, cigarettes at all. And someone introduced a vape to me, and I just tried it. And for some reason, it really became my hand in hand with Adderall. So there was this constant cycle of taking an Adderall, making sure I had enough to vape that day. And making sure I had enough pods. And there was just this obsession with making sure I had all my bad vices all day. And I'd have this little party with myself all day. And it would literally be Adderall, Juul, drink water, chapstick, because I was also so dehydrated, right? So I was drinking so much water, which should be a good thing, right? But to be honest, I was spending so much time peeing. Literally every 12 minutes, I'd have to get up and go to the bathroom, to the point where I was I can't even get into a mode of a 2-hour work mode because I'm constantly having to get up because I had to drink so much water because I was so dehydrated. And then my lips would get chapped, so the chapstick. And it doesn't seem like a big deal, right? But it's just all these tchotchkes in front of me. And I would be okay, I'm ready to go to work. I got all my bad vices here ready for me. And I would do that from 6 in the morning until 6 p.m. I'd go through my little cycle, my toxic cycle, I call it. And then come 6, 7, I'd be okay, now it's time to wind down. So then I would drink wine first. And if anyone knows, your tolerance for alcohol becomes higher when you're on Adderall or cocaine or anything like that, right? So I've always been able to drink a lot, to be honest, but I really could drink a lot before I would feel the sleepy effects that I wanted to feel. But the effect that I got was wanting to continue to drink and party. It didn't give me that sleepy effect that I wanted. So then I started entertaining Xanax, and sometimes, one of those wouldn't do it. And then I would have to take 2 Xanaxes, and I got into NyQuil. I got into SleepQuil. What is it called? The sleepy version of NyQuil. I got into sleep gummies. So now there was this constant cycle of how to go to sleep. And then I had all my nighttime tchotchkes to play with, right? Then I would also do the essential oils. I try to do the holistic, remedies, because that just made me feel like I wasn't really doing anything wrong, right? I would put on my red lamp. I'd put on my salt lamps. I'd light the candles. I'd act like I'm going into meditation mode. I would do this whole facade for myself. And I was only fooling myself. But this was the cycle that I really, it wasn't that bad initially, but it eventually evolved into, like I said, this morning to 6 p.m. upper cycle. And then from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. of winding myself down and having, the worst sleeps also, because you don't truly get a good sleep. And there was so much shit in my system. By the time I'd fall asleep, no one could have quality sleep on there. So the cycle would start again in the morning, because I could just take 3 more Adderall to get myself, to overcompensate for the bad sleep the night before. And that's how it continued to go.
You're lucky you didn't have an accidental overdose.
No, I'm very lucky. I had a lot of heart pains. I went to a lot of urgent cares. and had them, there's times where the pains in my heart were very intense, and it would really scare me. Not enough to quit, but it would really scare me. And then again, I would play that facade with myself. I would be like, I'll just go to urgent care, make sure I'm good for the night, and then I'll just taper off for a little bit. I just, won't go crazy with the Adderall, and no drinking for 1 week, and I'd come up with all these new ideas that I'm going to do. And eventually the cycle would start again.
When did you realize that Adderall was a bigger problem than you?
My excuse to myself was, I just need a month off. If I could have a month off, I could quit. No problem. Right? Because I had a few moments here and there where I wouldn't take it. It obviously had to be a weekend when I'm not working, or maybe on vacation, if you will. But the fear of the crash was, that created anxiety with it itself. I was so fearful of the depressing crash that happens when you don't take it and you stop it abruptly. That even on vacation, or even in a time when I truly didn't need it, I would still take it. And some of it would be just to get me through that vacation day, or to get me through a family trip, or something to keep me up and alert, because I also wasn't used to, let's say, like a calm day. I'm so used to go, 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 that then when you gave me a normal, like, calm Saturday, I'd be like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And because I'm so used to this high pressured, like, Adderall driven festival that I created for myself, that when someone's like, you want to just relax for the day, I'm like, I don't know how to do that. So it was almost like I'd pop an Adderall just to kind of play this like party cycle with myself again. But I always said, if I could just have a month off from work, that I'd have no problem quitting. And so the pandemic hit, and like most of us can relate, we were either laid off, or work got slower, or, our salary decreased, or whatever the case is. And so I lost a few clients, and I was like, this is my time. This is my time to quit. Like, and I kind of had been praying for a time. Like, it sounds awful, but in one end, I thought I was very grateful for the pandemic in one way, because it was kind of giving me that break. Obviously, there's so many other terrible things that came along with it. But in my internal twisted brain at that time, I was like, this is my break. This is my break. I needed a pandemic to like a whole world pandemic to give me the confidence and space and time to quit. And now it's here, delivered on a platter. Everything is shut down. We're sequestered. I have no obligation to anybody to answer, to reply, nothing. And then what do? I start creating side projects for myself, because I'm like, well, if I lose all my clients, I'm going to need something when this whole thing is lifted. And I never took that time that was given to me. And that time was given to me so I'm mad at myself for not taking advantage of that time. And so in order to, I guess, invest in the time and energy for my side projects, I kept taking the Adderall. And I didn't need to do those side projects at all. I just, again, it was the form of, the fear. I think the fear that we all kind of went through during the pandemic too is, what's next? What are we going to do? Blah, blah, blah. So I was on on that hypersensitive, anxious mode, like we all were, right? But then I would just take Adderall on top of that to heighten the anxiety even more.
According to a recent CBS News poll, 54% of American families are affected by cancer. My story will touch you on how I survived colon and liver cancer. Now, I'm living a healthy lifestyle. I will inspire you to inspire others. Allow me to not only entertain, but leave you energized and driven to change your life and bring your organization working closer together. So open those minds and let me provide the tools to gain your greatest level of personal enrichment. For more information, go to TommyCanale.com. That's TommyCanale.com. And remember, You're one day away from changing your life. Click the link in the show notes. Even though it's such a hard thing for you to talk about and have gone through, on the end side of this, and we're going to get back to this whole struggle that you had here in a minute, something good does come out of this. Mm-hmm. Free as a T, freeasat.com. I love Free 4, female owned, sourced locally made in LA, safe, ethical, and socially clean and conscious. How the idea originated to do a t-shirt line.
I don't know the first time I thought about it. I think it was I had gone to a Tony Robbins seminar. It was a remote one, and I was in Arrowhead, Lake Arrowhead in California. And it was a great seminar, but to me, because of my quote learning disability or whatever you want to call it, I had to take a step away, because what would happen in these like massive Zoom calls is there's so much information that you have to digest at one time that you really don't have the time to digest it or write notes down or take notes like you can. But again, going back to my childhood, that pace truly is too fast for me. And so I shut the computer mid-seminar and I said, I'm just going to take the one thing that I remember him saying, and I'm going to do that exercise on my own. And so I popped an Adderall and I did the exercise. And the exercise was basically like, what are your non-negotiables? And it was very simple. What are your non-negotiables? And where do you, like, what do you want out of your life? But it was in these like pillars. So it basically was like, step 1 is on the top, then it leads to step 2, leads to step 3, 4, and then 5 leads to like your dream scenario, right? And it was like, what are the steps you have to do to get there? And so the bottom row had said, I wish I had it here. It would be incredible to read it. But the bottom row said, off of Adderall. It said to continue doing Zumba, because I love doing Zumba, and I'm a trained instructor, but I haven't pursued my license yet. But to me, that is kind of like my side happy job, right? So to me, that was like my passionate job, because I was really also trying to fill in like purpose and passion, and like a giving back, a charitable element. That was supposed to be on the bottom of this like pillar that I made, or pyramid, I should say. And so for me, it was no Adderall, Zumba, and then at that time I was considering a blazer line.
I remember that. Yeah.
But really what that represented to me was a product, some sort of product that in my mind would create a little bit more of a passive income. Now, I don't think having a company in any way is passive income, but in my mind, what I was currently doing just wasn't passive enough. It was just, I literally have to work for every single dollar. And I couldn't really figure out the right ways to delegate and to manage it correctly to ever alleviate myself from the workload. And I felt like my current business model and how I was running it was some of the reason why I had to take the Adderall. And so in my mind, if I could switch what I was doing, I wouldn't have to take the Adderall, is what I thought, right? So if I just replaced it with something that I really was passionate about, because, the one thing you learn at those seminars is like, if you don't like what you're doing, you got to switch it up, shake it up, do something, change your physiology. Just do something, right? Just don't sit there and do the same robotic cycle. So I was like, I just got to switch it up. So I'm just going to be product focused. I'm going to make some sort of product, right? So that was my third one. And then my fourth one was to make sure that in some of these facets, I'm giving back. I'm giving back. And I thought that was going to be in Zumba, actually, because the license that I had got was to teach elderly and disabled. And so in my mind at that time, I was like, that's how I'm going to give back to the world. I'm going to be a Zumba instructor, and I'm, going to focus on this niche. And And then my non-negotiables for myself were to do Zumba every day, but I think it was also like meditate and
Maybe,
I don't know.
was it journaling? Because I know you're journaling a lot.
Yeah, journaling. So it was some of those things, right? And then there was the bigger things I had to do. I had to restructure my business. I had to do certain things to make time for this bottom row that I was going to try to achieve. And let's see what happened from there. So I kept that paper with me in my folder every day, and I looked at it, and I was good with my non-negotiables for a little bit. I had followed like the first 2 rows of the pyramid, which was like, hire a full-time assistant, delegate all the work to them. It'll alleviate you. Don't take any more marketing clients on, take showroom clients because they're easier. So I was in the middle of the pyramid, right? And then now me and my best friend had signed up to go to Fiji for another Tony Robbins in-person seminar. And the seminar was great. Because I can't focus, quote, focus, I was in and out of it a little bit, right? So what I did was, as the seminar would go on, I would go in my hotel room and I would write down what I wanted to do in my future. And some of the things they were telling me, I was applying that, but I could not do it in the room with 100 other people. I needed that solitary moment. And like, to me, I don't care how much money I spent at that seminar. If going into the hotel room is what helped me, that's what helped me, And, I would get the criticism walking back in late or not showing up or whatever. And I was like, I'm getting what I need out of this. It just doesn't look the way it's supposed to.
Right.
And so I remember in Fiji, I said, I think at that point we had determined that the product was not going to be a blazer anymore because I had done the research and it was way too complicated to even like make a first sample. There was no factories. There was a really cool concept behind it, but it just kind of fizzled out. And the cost to even, begin to do it was just way too much. And I remember someone had said to me, just try something easier. Just try tank tops. And I was like, that's so boring. Like everybody has done tank tops or like t-shirts. I'm like, no, like I like the simplicity of it, but I want something that's like different and unique and like fresh to the market. And because the blazer idea was like, well, I don't want to say it because it's still a good idea.
It is.
But it was innovative and it was interesting. And, my best friend has a bunch of resources. So she's like, I can get it out there. So, we were excited about it. But then obviously, when you put pen to paper and look at the numbers, it was just too much. So anyway, someone had said t-shirts and I was like, I don't know. But that stuck in my head somewhere. And then I remember, I think it was in Fiji, I was like, t-shirts came to my mind again. And I said, maybe there's something I can do with this t-shirt line. And at that point, I was thinking, we had been lucky enough to actually meet a lot of the locals, the local Fijians, and actually be in their villages. And my best friend actually threw my birthday party in one of their homes in the villages. And I got a goat for my birthday, like a real live goat. And learned all their birthday, like their culture and the things that they do. You eat cake out of each other's hands. It's like a whole thing. And I remember thinking like, well, maybe there's some way to like team up this way. Like maybe I can make t-shirts and I don't know, I can build a small village of a manufacturer in Fiji. That's where I was kind of going with the idea. And that would be my giving back, situation, because I fell in love with these Fijians. Have you ever been?
No.
Oh, they're they're so sincere, so humble, so grateful. Even when we were like in our one friend, her name is Bella, when we were in her home, having my birthday party, we're all sitting on the floor and she had saved 2 forks and it was one for me and my best friend, Janelle, and the rest of them were eating with their hands. And I looked up and I was like, oh, I don't need a fork. If you don't have a fork, I don't have a fork. And I put it down and I started eating their food with my hand. But they thought nothing of it, right? So it just shows you how humble they are and how they saved their 2 forks, or where they even found 2 forks to give to us, because it's not a normal thing to come by. So anyways, I was maybe there's a way to, do something with the Fijian culture and I don't know, work it out that way. So that was kind of my mindset in the beginning. And going back to the seminar part with Tony Robbins, I went to the hotel room and skipped the whole seminar that day. And I came up with the name Free as a Tea. I bought the domain. I bought some t-shirt samples. And I just started doing research, lots and lots and lots of research. And eventually that involved to putting together the 3 most popular classic silhouettes, if you will, in the garment industry of t-shirts. And I was like, something is missing. I still just can't do t-shirts to do t-shirts. So recently, with my whole Adderall thing, and my father just got diagnosed with dementia, and, left and right, something is happening to somebody, a disease, a condition, a disorder or something. And I just thought to myself, like, maybe there's a way to pair colors with shirts and have those shirts represent these conditions or disorders or, shortcomings, if you will. And my inspiration was really like, the pink ribbon, the breast cancer pink ribbon, because that's the most prominent one that I know of. And I was like, why don't we just only have ribbons though? Why don't we have more than ribbons? Like, yeah, everyone has like the swag during like,
Sure.
but it's very much in your face, and which is great. But I was like, is there a cool way to represent this? And it doesn't have to be so in your face, but it's almost for yourself. It's like a little internal like reminder to yourself of something you're going through or an issue that you have, but more so not to represent it, but to kind of give you a reminder of you can overcome it. And so I started pairing colors with t-shirts and aligning them with certain conditions. So for example, October is ADHD month. So I can relate to that one. And mental awareness month, which I can also relate to that one. And breast cancer awareness month. I can relate to a lot of the cancers, not myself, but my family has been through a facet of different types of cancers. And so I wanted to start with the few that I actually have a story and I'm connected to, because I didn't want to just put something out there to put something out there and not really have me truly a part of it, and so it kind of all came together like that. And the more I started thinking about it, the more I was like, I think this is a really good idea, but I feel a little bit of a fraud because I was still taking Adderall. And I said, there's no way. And I'm really bad at times and timelines, but I'm going to say this was 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago when the ideas were brewing about it. And I was like, all I know is I can't do one more step towards this t-shirt brand unless I get off this Adderall, because I can't have this new company be based and built on fake energy. And not fake energy, but fake motivation. I didn't want any medication to be involved in it. But I was like, God damn it, I don't think I can quit. I just don't think I right now more than ever, I need it to build another business. There's no way I can handle what I'm currently doing, plus add this other business. But to me, this business was going to free me of my own problems. Hence, Free as a Tea. Right? So I was like, this is really my out. And then imagine how many other people this could be. It's just a t-shirt at the end of the day, but it's what you make it represent to you.
Correct. Hold on a second there, Ashley. I want to read something to the listeners that I've taken from the site that may help tie some of this in.
Okay.
The mission is, reminder, you are doing the best you can and believe in yourself. You're using 100% organic cotton, non-toxic dyes, and zero waste, highlighting diseases and mental awareness while minimizing stigmas. Free yourself from daily battles and focus on small changes. Each purchase is supporting a cause and a mission. You're talking about you got to get yourself off Adderall, which you did. And I'm going to have you explain that. But just that statement there, listeners, tells you that this isn't just a t-shirt brand, and it's not another t-shirt, whatever color, whatever thing you're going to represent. It's more than that. Based on that, you're wearing something that gives you a feeling of what you're representing.
To yourself.
To yourself, not to anybody else, but just to yourself. Right. So Free as a Tea is absolutely brilliant in my eyes. And when you sent this to me, I said, OMG, this is an absolute phenomenal idea because of what it's representing to the person wearing the shirt. And that's all that it has to matter to. No matter what it is, just them. So take that from there and go forward about getting yourself off Adderall and now being almost 90 days free of it by doing this by yourself. No doctor involved. You just said, I'm doing it.
One night I actually didn't take that much that day. I mean, I usually take more, but it was a day that I actually didn't take as much as I normally do. And that night I had very bad spasms. I had them kind of all over my body. So my body was twitching. And I started kind of doing some research, and between the Adderall and the the Xanax and whatever else I was putting in my body at that time to overcompensate all the bad shit I was putting in my body, there's something called serotonin syndrome. And it's when you have too much of serotonin inside your body, too much like fake serotonin, I guess, if you will. And one of the side effects was spasms and twitching, and like I had a lot of the other symptoms as well. And I said, oh my God, there's actually like there's a definition for what I'm going through right now. And the spasms I had felt before, but they felt really different this time, and they were very frequent. So to make sure I wasn't like making it up in my head, I had my best friend come and count how often they were happening. And they were happening like every 3 seconds. And she's like, we probably should get you to urgent care. And at that time I had, really learned holistically how to calm my mind and my body down as much as I could. And so I did get through that night and everything was fine. And the next morning I was really shaken up about it, and not enough to not take any Adderall. I took another one. And I remember I left that day and I came back, and a lot of great things had happened that day or that week. It was one of those times where just really everything was going great, to be honest with you. Like a lot of great opportunities were coming my way, and opportunities were kind of just falling in my lap. And I said to myself, I'm never going to be able to handle all of this. Like no amount of Adderall is ever going to be able to handle the amount. Like if I really activate all these things that are happening around me right now, and all these like gracious things that are coming to me, and I really pursue them all, like I can't even go up to take more because I'm already on my like cap, or I'm literally going to die. And I remember looking at my bottle, and at that point I had 90 in there, which was a very dangerous number for me because usually I was like kind of at the scraps of a bottle, and I had a lot. So I knew the damage I could do with that amount. And I remember looking at the bottle and being like, I'm scared to know what will happen to me if if I finish this bottle. And at that moment, I really had a mental breakdown and chucked the pills all over the kitchen table, and I threw them in the sink. I threw them in the garbage. I put water over them. Like I could have just thrown them all in the toilet, but I was like just really just having like a Adderall pop-your party with myself again, and just chucking them all over. And I was angry at them, and I was angry at myself because I'm so much smarter than this, of how I got myself in this cycle. And after I got rid of every single one, I went into my room and I just cried, and I cried for hours. And to me, that was my lifeline. That was my oxygen. I felt like I couldn't breathe without it. I didn't know how I was going to do anything without it. I didn't know how I was going to get through, how I was going to like handle my responsibilities. I I even called her a rehab, which, I mean, sounds crazy, but I didn't trust myself. It was the first time I really didn't trust myself, because it really ends up taking on a role of itself.
Mhm.
And a drug doesn't consider your thoughts in it. It just, that one side of me just wanted it. And, I was afraid that, mind you, I can't get the prescription very easily. So throwing out those 90 pills, I knew that for at least 30 days, I couldn't get any, because I had to wait for the cycle to renew from my doctor. But I could always find it from somebody or a friend or whatever, right? And so I called a rehab and I spoke to them, and really nice lady. And they couldn't get me in. And I had to, do something with my insurance and da 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 da. They make it very difficult, by the way, to get in if it is serious. But then, I want to say maybe 3 days later, something beautiful happened. Sounds cheesy, but it's hard to explain.
It was freedom.
It was freedom. Yeah. Actually, that's a beautiful way of putting it. It was pure freedom. And it was also, throughout this cycle, and I'll say more so the last 2 years, I had been doing a lot for my health and everything else, but it was really just to compete with the toxicness I was doing, right? So I was kind of making a joke before, I was into the crystals and I was into the journaling, meditating, yoga, X, Y, and Z, salt baths, all of this stuff. And I still am, and I love all of it. But it was really just to kind of overcompensate for the shitty stuff I was doing to my body. And so it made me psychologically feel better, right? But I also never felt or reaped the benefits of any of that stuff. I would sit there and I would count all the things I'm grateful for, and I'd just be numb. I wouldn't feel anything. I would journal about how great my day was, and I'd feel nothing. I'd journal about how bad my day was, and I'd feel nothing. I mean, it was just neutral, autopilot, numb, blah. And once I let my body kind of cycle out a lot of the Adderall, it was like the last 2 years of work that I've done on myself was locked up, and it just came shooting up. And all of a sudden I could see color again. I actually enjoyed eating food again, because I lost my appetite for a very long time and lost a lot of weight. And even the taste of food was just blah. I enjoyed normal activities again. Like going to the beach was sometimes dreadful for me because it just was too slow. Whereas now I look forward to it. I could truly focus on the small things and feel that gratitude, because I mean, my holistic therapist I was like, I'm doing everything I can and I feel nothing. But I knew the truth. The truth was I was numbing any feeling.
Right.
So I was just playing a game. This whole thing was a game within myself that I lost very badly at.
Well, as you just said, the name Free as a T, you freed yourself from all of that. And you freed up your creative mind to do what you do best. And that's fashion. And it shows in the work that you have put forward. Listeners, go to the show notes, click on Free as a T, purchase a t-shirt to inspire, to represent a milestone in your own life. It could be several colors. It could be several styles, whatever it is. But you've created something now, because we said, freedom has now a new meaning to you. And you have this wide open happiness look to you that I told you recently that I haven't seen out of Ashley. And it's beautiful to see that there's this happiness and this excitement in the way that you're portraying this product. I don't think there's anywhere for this thing to go but through the roof.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I think, really quick, the biggest thing I want people to really get out of this is, I mean, there's a lot. I could talk for another 3 hours, but it's just I thought that there was never a place for my issue because I didn't think it was big enough. I didn't think that it warrant, excuses or a story or anything. I just thought that it was too tiny. And because I am a really strong person, I can handle a lot. It just, we all have our own issues. And I think that they all have a place, right? And we all should have the right to communicate and talk about our issue, whether it's, I don't know, it could be something so tiny. It could be, you don't work out enough or you eat too much chocolate. It could be something super tiny, but that's still a problem within you. And it's just the idea of like, I don't want everyone going around playing the victim card, but it's also just knowing that like, you don't have to do this behind closed doors, which I did. There's always going to be somebody out there that can actually relate to exactly what you're going through if you decide to share your story. And so the biggest thing is for me is this brand is mission driven first and storytelling first, and it's a product secondary. I rather people come on and find a way to share their story than buy a t-shirt. Because that honestly means more to me.
And really what you're saying there in a nutshell is no issue is too small.
Exactly.
And don't feel like your issue isn't big enough as you did.
Right.
To say anything or do anything about it. To feel the freedom. And if it's not a t-shirt, to share the story, to tell your story, to open up, to get help, to talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take step number one. You did in a huge way by one day just saying, that's it.
Right, which is not the best way to get off of medication. So please don't do what I did. If anyone's having those issues, talk to your doctor. I was so embarrassed I couldn't even, bring it up to my doctor. But to your point, that's the other thing. Don't put pressure on yourself. Just one little step at a time. Now, it doesn't mean one step forward, one step back. It just means have an ongoing goal list, if you will, and just try to do one baby step at a time. And even if that t-shirt represents baby steps to you and you just did one step, like that's it. And that was another thing. After I got off Adderall, I told myself, if I want to sleep, I'm going to sleep. If I get creative, I'm going to lean into that. If I'm analytical, I'm going to focus on that. Meaning I'm done forcing myself and my body to do things that it doesn't want to do. I forced myself to stay awake too many times. I forced myself to work when I didn't want to. And that's the other thing is listen to your body naturally. I'm still always going to be like, team ambitious. And that's the other thing. I realize I am still ambitious even off of it. I thought I wouldn't be. I really gave that medication so much of my confidence for some reason. But I was narrow. I was tunnel vision.
Tunnel vision.
I was tunnel visioned and I did not see the bigger picture in life at all. And I had such foggy glasses on. And when those were removed, just perspective came flying in, gratitude came flying in. And so, I don't know, like just back to what I said, just one step at a time. And every problem has a place and is worth communicating.
As I heard you say that you lost your appetite, now you're back to enjoying and eating food.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to take you out to dinner, get you some good food. We're going to have some fun. We're going to have some laughs.
I love sweets again. I love chocolate. I have like chocolate every night. I mean, it's like a brand new world for me. It really is. So I'm enjoying it.
Ashley, thank you so much for not only coming on the show, but opening up about your struggles that you've been dealing with for the past 5+ years. And at least sharing your story, and hopefully we touch somebody.
That's the whole purpose. Whole purpose is if this can help one person, then that's what I'm here for.
Listeners, follow me on Instagram at Before the Lights Podcast. And do me a favor, take 30 seconds out of your time, go rate and review the show, please. And if you haven't followed it, click the follow button. Until next time, I'm Tommy Canale. Thank you for listening to Before the Lights. A salute. A chin chin.